G'day everyone, welcome to the Centre Bounce. Today we'll be talking about the Port Adelaide Power, how they did in 2022, a look at the changes to the list, and some talks about what we're going to do and what we're going to see from them next year. We also got a special guest. Stay tuned.
All right, so today we're joined by JB. How you doing, JB?
Boys, hello. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Thanks for coming on. I guess kind of just before we get started, obviously we've brought you on for the Port review. So you're a mad Port supporter here. Do you want to just kind of explain what you do outside of supporting Port? You know, do you do some content? Do you do some shows, that kind of thing?
I do content. I'm a part of the Dr. Supercoach team, so got a bit of logo going on here.
Nice.
If you haven't seen us on Twitter, we are essentially we do the podcast. We post a bit on Twitter. We have a decent Patreon following as well that we love getting around, and pretty much just Supercoach content for the entire season. So we don't really stray outside of that. So sorry if you're a Dream Team player, but not for us. But we've been going for a few years now, and we enjoy jumping on other podcasts and saying g'day and showing our faces and trying to help share the content around a little bit as well. So it's good being on with you guys. I've seen some of your work; it's pretty good stuff. So keen.
Yeah,
Port Adelaide fan, unfortunately.
Oh,
not unfortunately. I suppose we'll hit and miss.
Thanks very much for coming on. Just before we get started, have you always gone for Port? Was it kind of just like a family thing, your parents and then you, or was it something you kind of found as you were more an adult?
Yeah, I guess, no, I've always supported them. Otherwise, my dad might have kicked me out at age 3. Obviously, growing up in SA, in Adelaide here, we essentially, I know Victorians are very much, we are the footy state. We've got the 2 stadiums, the 25 clubs, all that. But SA is very much, we live and breathe football, and we only have 2 teams. So that decision is not as diluted as in Victoria, where you might know 10 different people support 5 different teams and it's all fine. It's one or the other, and you don't like the other. You're at war with the other. So very important decision. Parents all over South Australia are fighting for their kids to follow their team, not their partners. It's a very important battle. And so I was ushered into the Port Adelaide fan club very early and got to see the 04 grand final as a young kid. I was about 8 years old for that. So since then, it's been the ups and downs. A lot of downs in the midsection there, but it's looking up at the moment, so it's exciting.
That's very cool.
If I'm barracking for a team that's making it to prelim finals, I don't know, man. I don't know. It could definitely be a lot worse. Speaking from experience.
We've had some good success recently. It's the club. I think the club's in a great position. 2022 surprised me a lot with where we ended up. Obviously, the poor start kicked us off into essentially turmoil that we couldn't fight up against. But I don't think the list has been in a better position since I've really been following as closely as I have, obviously, into my teenage years more so. So after the grand final, a few years after the grand final against Geelong then. So following that, I don't think we've had a better position to be in. So I'm excited for this year. I was very excited for last year. So hopefully we get different results this year. But yeah, a few prelims in recent times has been very promising.
Yeah, it's nice to see kind of the eventuation and those plays like Rosie and Butters, when you had the 3-peat with the 3 draft picks early in the draft. Those guys finally maturing and getting really into their bodies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Butters came in, and I think from day dot, I was a Rosie fan. Obviously, he had that incredible game against Brisbane very early in his career, where he kicked a bag of goals. It was very easy to support him from that point on. Love Rosie. But when Butters, I think it was mostly his second year where he sort of started flirting with that high half forward / centre bounce attendee, you really saw the Robbie Gray in Zach Butters. And there's a surefire way to win over Port supporters is act anything like Robbie Gray, and Zach Butters has sort of stepped into that in a big way. So he's my favourite player. So easy to support, so easy to enjoy watching those boys play. And then obviously Dersman's had his ups and downs, but we got obviously a lot more youth as well coming through. So, and Ollie's still young. People forget how young Ollie Wines is as well. So, Brownlow medalist as well. So, yeah, I think with where our list is at, I would have liked to have done more last year, and Robbie's last year. It was very heartbreaking to go to his final game, watch him do the lap of honour. I would have liked to have seen him do that in a final at least. So I feel like we let him down a little bit, but the aging talent is still good enough. The youth is coming through. It's exciting to follow us at the moment. It's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. So just kind of going over the year that was, you guys finished 11th on the ladder, 10 wins and 12 losses with a percentage of 110. Going into 2022, did you kind of feel like this was around the mark, or did you feel like, you guys should be locked into the top 8? What was kind of your feelings there?
I think if you ask most footy supporters, I think top 4 was probably going around a lot of people's heads. I obviously, with a little bit of bias, I would have said 3 to 4. And if we fall outside the top 4, it'd be hard, but we can beat anyone on their day. But obviously what's happened is we underperformed by a long way. The early start to the season, I referenced it before, losing the first 5 games to the teams that we lost them to as well. Obviously, it was the showdown after the siren. We lost to Brisbane. We always lose to Brisbane to start the season. We always play them at the Gabba, and they beat us at the Gabba every time. Not this year. We got them at Adelaide Oval, but that's obviously always a hard start to the season as well, going up to the Gabba and playing them in good form. And then who else? We lost to another team that was just not a Hawthorn. Hawthorn smoked us out of Adelaide Oval as well by 10 plus goals. So that was just from then on, you're just fighting an uphill battle, and we couldn't string it back. We had teams like Collingwood, who we played twice, who at the start of the year you might have thought would be a good little percentage booster. They were obviously incredible last year, so it didn't work out that way. They obviously beat us a couple of times as well. So it wasn't our season last year. I think we underperformed by a very long way, and I think this year is the year that we hopefully overcorrect the other way and can win some fans back, because I think we lost a bit of love last year.
Yeah. I guess you always want to end up higher than Adelaide on the ladder, regardless kind of finals or whatever result. Get the bragging rights that way.
Absolutely. And there was a stage where that wasn't looking likely, and I don't know how to explain it well to Victorians, but I suppose WA have a similar type of rivalry, but maybe not as they're obviously a bit newer. But essentially, you go to work after losing to Brisbane at the Gabba. You go to work after losing to Brisbane at the Gabba by a couple of goals, and Crows beat Gold Coast or North Melbourne or whatever, and it's hell on earth. Like, all you hear is you just get jeered like the entire time. It is outrageous how strong the support is here and how much one side will dislike the other. And you if you don't win a game, even if Crows don't win their game, if you don't win your game and you were slightly higher favourites than what they were, it's again you're coming into a hell. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle when you're down in SA, but we did get over the top of them. So sucked in, Crows.
I didn't realise it was such a war zone.
It is. It really is. I try my hardest to explain it. It's especially if you start bantering back and forth, it just really creates it's not toxic. It's all in good fun, of course, but people can really like. I've come into work after the showdown where we lost after the siren to Jordan Dawson. I had several emails waiting for me at work, like right away as I walk in. There's emails sitting there. They're on it. It's very back and forth. It's very, big brother, little brother type of behavior here in SA. It's crazy.
That's cool.
How much would you put that down to, though? like that. It was a really poor start to the season. Obviously, you can't shy away 0-5. But how much would you put this year down to just a lot of injuries to really important senior players? That's got to play a fairly big role, right?
Yeah, no, it did, and I like pulling out the injury list and just when people get too vocal about Port and this team sucks, I can't believe they're not doing this. We thought they'd do this year. It's always good to remind people, we're missing this guy, this guy, this guy. But as I'm frequently reminded in return, a lot of teams deal with injuries and still have incredible seasons. So it's not everything. It's not the be all and end all to just have a few injuries. It's we had players in and out, but the important players played a lot of the year. I mean, it was hard without Charlie Dixon, but Todd Marshall stepped up. So how much can we really say, we weren't winning because of Dixon? We still had a good forward kicking goals. Razzle didn't play the entire season. I thought that was pretty important, and especially our forward line is stretched as it is. It was last year. So that I felt was more an important loss. But again, you're talking about someone who's only played a dozen games for your club, and you can't really quantify that. He might come in and make no difference at all. You don't exactly know. So, look, you can point to injuries a little bit as a factor, but we just weren't good enough. We just lost to teams that we should have beaten. That I keep thinking about that game against Hawthorn at Adelaide Oval. That was just outcoached, and they were just so much more hungry than what we were. That was just a team that didn't want to win that day. It didn't matter how many injuries we had. We could have been full strength. We were not winning that game. So stuff like that.
And the Hawks couldn't miss. The Hawks converted, I think, almost every one of their set shots that night. It was eerie how it just seemed like, oh boy, the universe is against Port tonight.
It felt that way. It definitely felt that way. I'm trying to find the what was their accuracy like that game. It was like round 3 or 2. It was round 2.
I think they converted 11 out of 12 set shots. I think it was
So they finished 19 goals, 6 behinds. Yeah. So outrageous. I remember Gunston kicked on from the pocket late or early in the fourth quarter or something like that. And I looked to my wife, who goes to every Port home game, and we just said, look, we never leave early, but the boys aren't even here at this one. So maybe this is one of the games that we just sort of we walk it out into the aisles for. So we actually did leave early that game, which is shocking form by us. But couldn't keep watching that one. That was, and then my wife kept telling me to check the scores as we're walking back. She doesn't leave early ever either, and she's like, we kicked a couple in a row, and there's 2 more Hawthorn goals. We're down by 10 goals. It's not looking good. They were incredible that night. But those are the games that you have to win if you're making finals, especially top 4.
Was she an Adelaide supporter, and then you've converted her over to Port, or did you find someone that was kind of Port, ticked off the checklist?
I got very lucky. I found someone who was already a Port Adelaide supporter, so she already checked that box. She already attended every home game. Her mum is a very, very crazy Port Adelaide supporter, so they go together every single time we're at home. Her dad is a Crows supporter, so I'm very lucky that she zigged instead of zagging. So no, it's easy. It's easy in our house. But when we go to their house and watch games, it's not as easy for them. I've seen people sleeping on couches. I've seen objects thrown at one another. There's just that little bit of back and forth. If there's a close game with Port or Crows on, it really does add up. So no, I got lucky with mine.
The derby must be rough. If you've got to watch it at someone's house, it's
I refuse to now. It's gotten to a point where I just watch it with my wife, and that's it. It's just us two. Or if she goes to the game and I stay home, I'll just watch it by myself. Because the constant shit talk is just it's too much at times, and especially if you're losing or if you think you're going to lose, or if you're favorite to win. It's a lose-lose situation. You either beat them as the favorite and it's whatever, or they beat you and you're the favorite, so you cop it worse. It is so wretched. I've logged off Facebook many a time after a showdown just to. It's honestly full on. It's hard to explain until you get involved. The two-team town is crazy. It is insane.
Yeah. Well, just kind of looking.
Yeah, go for it, Jay.
Just kind of looking over Port's season for the year, the difference between kind of your goals and your behinds that you guys were scoring, it really seems like inaccuracy hurt you quite a lot. I know we kind of off air talked a little bit about Dixon kind of not stepping up and the forward line being a bit sore. Do you find that the inaccuracy in front of goal was probably a major reason why, started 0-5, but also didn't claw back a little bit in those games? Like a lot of these games here, I'm looking at, 7-14 against the Hawks, 13-14 against Adelaide. What's another one down here? 14-10 against 13-13 against Carlton. Like those kind of clutch games, players would score behinds and the inaccuracy hurt you quite a lot.
Yeah, so our biggest consistency is that we are inconsistent in front of goals. This has been a problem for a few seasons now, to what I can remember. It's often that we are leaving the venue or reflecting after a match, just me and whichever fan I'm talking to, and saying, why isn't goal kicking the most prominent aspect of our training? Because it is clearly not getting better. And Todd Marshall, we have one of the most accurate, if not the most accurate, top 20, top 15 Coleman medal person. He was deadly accurate in front of goal, and we still just could not convert a good points to goal ratio. And it feels like it's season after season that we're doing that. The season prior to this one, so 2021, we were still successful because the weight of the goals were just so much higher. We were kicking so many goals, and our defense was a bit better. But now your defense has gotten a little bit worse. So teams are scoring against you, and you're not keeping up with the goals that you're scoring either now. So the behinds just hurt so much. I pray that we're doing something in this preseason regarding goal kicking, because it is often our downfall.
One player that I think was not a downfall for you this year that did really well was Jeremy Finlayson. He had to play a different sort of role, playing a lot more ruck, because you had some injuries to Scott Lysett, and then you bring in Teakle, but then he gets injured as well. So you left Jeremy there having to play a lot of ruck minutes as well as pinch hitting forward. I think he did really well for you guys this year. Did you see that too?
Absolutely. He was in the top few ruckman ratings wise for the aspect of the part of the season that he did do the rucking for. He became irresistible towards the end. You couldn't get him out of there because the follow-up work, the tackling, the just booting, getting the ball forward was something that we didn't have. Unfortunately, oh my God, I can't think of our big boy. Who's our big backup ruck?
Hayes?
I cannot even think of his name right now. Hayes, that's the one.
Sam Hayes?
Sam Hayes. So he's more of a tap ruckman, but he offered nothing after the ball was sort of tapped down. So getting Finlayson in suited our game style so much more. He was perfect for it. I actually had my doubts about that one. I've always said that we have incredible recruiters behind us in terms of free agency and draft. Finlayson was a real head scratcher for me. I did not think we needed him in our forward line. I didn't think we needed him in our defense either. I was really confused by the acquisition, and then he came and did this, and it was like, wow, we've actually done it again. We've been able to just pick someone up where the fans of other clubs have just gone, what are they doing? And it turns out to just be this absolute rocket for us that we desperately needed this season. So he was incredible. Big tick for him.
And I think one of his big games was here against Sydney as well. He really took it up to their ruckman. I forgot what his name was on the day, but he had an absolute howler.
Laddams or Hickey?
And gave away like a couple of 50s. Yeah, exactly. Correct. Oh, that was a massive game for you guys. I was watching, and you sometimes are able to turn it on and play with this really hard edge that I just feel like is classic Hinkley when you guys are playing that tough, uncompromising football. Unfortunately, Butters got injured that day, but you guys were still well and truly all over the Swans. You made them look like little children, to be honest. Do you reckon that was your best performance for the year?
Best performance, and for a lot of fans, that was our hopeful turning point of the season. It was this Swans team is so good, and we essentially, lack of better words, took the piss for a lot of that game, and that looked like what we envisioned our season going like. And the expectation was, now that we've shown we can do that against such a quality team, now is this going to become the consistent way we play the game? Then we scraped by Gold Coast the week after, and then I'm pretty sure we racked up a couple of losses. So yeah, against Fremantle, and then we pumped GWS, but that's not really important. But essentially, we that was like that little bit of saving grace, a little bit of hope given to the fans that, hey, we are capable of this brand of footy. And on the other hand, it was like, where has this been all season? And then it was like, where is this for the rest of the season? It was almost a one-off, that performance. So hopefully that's what we see more of this year.
Okay. So I guess then we can move on, I suppose, to looking at the changes that's happened to the team to see whether or not your team can continuously dish out those sort of performances and get rid of some inconsistency. I'm not sure if we can actually confirm that at this early stage in the game. You got Horne-Francis in one of the big high-profile, trades. It was a super trade, really involving 4 clubs to get him across from North to you guys. And you also picked up Junior Rioli as, I guess that was also part of that big 4 the big super club trade, I suppose. What are your feelings about this? Do you reckon you guys did as good as you possibly could have?
I wish I had the trade in front of me, because I felt like there was one big loot. I feel like North Melbourne could have done better, or should have done better. And I feel like Port should have given more for the return that we got. So that's obviously a good feeling as a supporter, but as someone who, I know a lot of North Melbourne fans, I know a lot of fans from every supporter base. I was sort of chatting to them and just saying, look, I feel like, I feel for you guys, because I feel like you didn't get exactly what you should have for your commodity, for your aspect of the trade. Having said that, that's a big tick for Port. We obviously tend to, I feel, do well in this space in terms of getting trades done, getting players to our club. I was shattered that we couldn't get Radaglia from Geelong. That would have been the cherry on top of the whole trade period for us. He would have serviced a big need for our club. But getting these 2 boys in and helping the forward line, as we see on the right-hand side, Motlop and Robbie both out this year, both retired. Robbie's the big one, obviously. He was the consistent best 10 in our side. He needs to be replaced. I think Junior Rioli will go a long way to that. And then Horne-Francis is obviously one of those future picks where we've got so much youth on our list that Horne-Francis just won't feel out of place at all.
Yeah, it definitely, from like a North Melbourne perspective, that that's who I go for. It felt a little bit like maybe we could have got a little bit more, but I think there was some maybe like off-field issues, that kind of thing. I agree. Got brainwashed into wanting to go, but I don't think he would have stayed in Melbourne if the trade didn't happen. So kind of getting what we got out of the trade there was pretty good for us, I reckon. The 2 first rounders, and then that kind of moving up in the draft for the other picks. So in and all, it was fairly neutral, pretty even trade there.
Yeah. I'm glad North Melbourne fans feel that way, because you never like seeing someone leave a club after just one season. I was hoping Horne-Francis could at least give you guys a couple of good years before making his mind up. I don't know exactly what's going on in his life. Obviously, there could be family stuff. There could just be anything happening with him. So I don't like to deep dive into how a player's mentality might be. But the fact that he had to get out this year, and you guys still got a great return, I'm glad you guys feel obviously good about that as well, because it's the club that the player's leaving that you really want to protect the most. So if he left for any less, I think there would have been a bit of backlash on that.
Yeah, we'd have to cop like 6 months of Kane Corn saying how good the deal was on Port Ends, and then how bad it was for North Melbourne, losing the number 1 draft pick, whatever.
He won't stop selling those articles. That's Kane Corns.
No, he won't. Can't wait for the North Port game down in Hobart. Should be a bit of a Bit of a cracker there. We'll see.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That game.
It's interesting because he's obviously a young lad. You don't want to see anyone shy away from getting into him for leaving the club, obviously. But also, who's the gentleman? Zerha, isn't it? That's sort of chasing me a bit on social media. A few of the comments from Zerha. Look, I love it. I love the banter. I love the rivalry that this might sort of resurrect from all our prelim finals and finals games against each other back 10 years ago. I think we kept coming up. You guys were our bogey team for a very long time there. We hated coming up against you guys in any format. And then it sort of, the roles reversed a little bit. So I think you guys hated coming up against us for a while there as well. So I'm glad that sort of comes back to fruition. But the slamming his head into the turf and those sorts of things from Zerha, I'm sort of thinking, I hope you don't, because that's a bit, we try to protect the head in this game now. Yeah, you tackle him. I think, was it Maynard that tackled Jaden Hunt this year? Was it? It was a Collingwood on a Melbourne lad.
Yeah, I think a few of them.
Yeah, the Melbourne lad said something about Collingwood being. I can't even remember quite what the quote was, but it was the first play of the game. The massive tackle, protected the head, did everything correctly. It wasn't a sling action, but made him feel it. And if that's the treatment Horne-Francis gets, then so be it. As long as it's not anything malicious, we don't want to see players missing games.
Outside of kind of
no dinner, something like that.
Sorry,
all duck no dinner. Was it like all duck no dinner or something like that?
Yes, correct. It was talking about Ginnivan and the high free kicks, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That was good. They all swarmed on them. Oh boy! And it just happened to be the first tackle of the game as well. Like it was just
and on
so
him. Yeah, beautiful. That's why we love the game.
Outside of kind of being the number one, outside of kind of being the number one pick, do you find that kind of Horne-Francis' skill set will add another string to your midfield? Is that kind of the big hope there, or just kind of adding another talent to that kind of area?
It's difficult because we've got a lot of midfielders. So obviously I expect Connor and Zach to be in there frequently this year as they ended the season last year. As we started playing better footy towards the end of the last year with those guys in there. Travis is obviously not going to see zero repetition. He'll still be in and out. Ollie Wines is a Brownlow medalist winning midfielder, so he'll obviously be in the midfield quite heavily. That sort of leaves a little bit of like, there are so many players. I mean, someone's going to take Amon's centre bounce attendances. I suppose we could see Horne-Francis step into that. I don't know if he plays on the wing. I don't know if he plays half forward. I'm not quite sure where he goes. Even Junior Rioli could get thrown in there occasionally. So it's very interesting. I find our team very interesting. Preseason is going to obviously tell a lot about where these lads go. But Horne-Francis can do a little bit of everything. He's so potent with the footy. I just don't know if that'll be in the midfield yet. I don't know if he has to wear him, like sort of earn those stripes with a few of the older lads retiring soon.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's good. I mean, you can still get a lot of development in the second in the state league games as well. You see it a lot with like Geelong, for example, who aren't quick to just throw a young player in just for the sake of them being young. They're very happy keeping their senior experienced players on the park and just allowing their second rung, the young talent, just keep chipping away, keep developing in the state league matches. So I would not be surprised if Horne-Francis does, as you say. Hinkley shows him the tough love treatment. You're coming to a big boy team here. No offense, Big J. You're coming into, this is a two club state here. You've got a lot of expectations placed on you. You're a high profile player. Just make sure you're settled before you tackle your career at Port Adelaide. Do you see something similar happening with Rioli as well, like having him play in the seconds as well?
I don't expect to with Rioli. I'll be very surprised if he's not in our best dozen players. And with the departure of your Robbie Gray, Motlop as well, specifically Robbie Gray, I think we desperately need potency up forward. I think we needed it this year before Robbie left. and obviously now he leaves such a big hole in there. I think Rioli will have no issues whatsoever stepping into that.
Fair enough. Do you feel like the loss of Carl Amon is a big deal, or do you really think that it's just beneficial both parties? It's been mutual. It's agreed. Yeah, you can go ahead, go to the Hawks. Are you guys gonna miss Amon?
I mean, the caliber of player that he is, he led our Brownlow votes this year. Did he make All Australian team last year? If not, he should have. Well, there was one year that he definitely should have. I know he was in the discussion this year. Maybe he made it last year. He's obviously a high caliber player. We love Amon. Great by foot. Will we miss him? I don't think so. I think he's one of those replaceable players as well. More of a not to take anything away from Carl. I think I've always been his biggest fan from his debut till now, and at the Hawks as well. I will be. But that type of role that he plays as the looser wingman, just collecting those cheaper touches and then being damaging with his kicking instead. I think someone like Kane Farrell could step into that. I think Dersma can hopefully step into that a little bit, depending on how his body is. And someone like Josh Sin, who we haven't seen yet, there's obviously high raps on him potentially taking a wing role as well. So I think we've got the cavalry to sort of step into Carl Amon's role quite comfortably. And he's an incredible player. I think Hawthorn got a good player, but people thought we were crazy for not throwing money at Jared Pollock when he got poached by Big J's team there. People thought we were crazy for not holding on to Jarman Impey when he wanted to leave as well. Chad Wingard, we were okay with losing. We've lost some players over the time, but it hasn't really impacted the club. I don't think Carl's going to be one to start the other trend there in impacting the club too much.
Hey, if you've got a list spot, you can take Pollock back.
No, I don't think we will. Sorry. No, I'm happy for you guys to keep paying. I think it was $700,000 or $800,000 a year for him.
Yeah.
Look, he was very good, but I could have said at the time a massive product of the system, money that we just didn't need to pay him. If a club was going to offer that money, then good on him. He should go take it. But I don't think he was. Yeah, I don't think he was prepared for it. And as we can see now, he hasn't had the best career at North Melbourne, unfortunately.
No. Just kind of going over the rest of your departures. Frederick did some things from memory, so kind of different that like he got delisted. So him and Mays, I remember playing quite a lot. Sam Skinner was kind of not a stopgap player, but a bit of a development, mature age player. Do you feel like those guys might, a bit hard done by getting delisted, or kind of progression of the team said, hey, maybe you guys, won't be going next year?
This might be a little bit controversial. I think Sam Mays is the biggest name we'll miss out of that list. He was super sub a few times, came on, made an impact. I like Maisie. Ever since we got him from Brisbane, I thought he could potentially slot into our team. He was never obviously good enough to do that, to break into the 22 for long enough. But I still thought he had a place on the list to potentially do some damage for us. So he's one that I didn't enjoy losing. Skinner, neither here nor there for us. That's something that will replace through the draft, as with Taj Schofield there as well. Never really made an impact. Now, Frederick, who I think is why my opinion is quite controversial, is because I'm not upset by his delisting. The things that he did was get opportunities. He got opportunities to play. He got opportunities on the wing. He got opportunities up forward, and he got opportunities in defence. He just wasn't quite that guy. And although I think he was a great cult figure, he did the gritty after a goal. That's, it was an incredible character. Played really well for the Sandful. He just didn't have that next level of skill set, and he got exposed a little bit for that in the games that he played. I would have liked to have just seen another year on the list, just see how he developed, but I'm okay with the fact that he was delisted. I think a lot of people see the name and the big shock factor is, oh yeah, I saw him play. He did this. He made the news for this. But if you watch him week in and week out, it's not overly shocking that he's no longer on the list, unfortunately. I would have liked for him to go to Fremantle. The Frederick combination would have been incredible.
Oh. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that. Okay. I guess we can then move on to, it is a cutthroat industry, and you gotta make list changes, right? Because at the end of the day, you get a draft hand at the end of the year that you can use, and that you got to use. And you picked up 3 players in the draft: Tom McCullum, a tall defender, at pick 36. You picked up Tom Scully, a key forward, at pick 53, and you picked up Kyle Marshall, who's a key defender, at pick 59. From what I can tell with Tom, so you've gone 2 defenders and a key forward. Is that roughly, what you were hoping, I suppose, the list positions that you were hoping to fill in the draft?
Well, yeah, we need a key defender. That's our biggest gaping hole in our squad right now. Is we got Jonas, Tom Cleary, and an 80-year-old Trent McKenzie holding the defense down. So a bit of an exchange between McKenzie and Cleary as to who plays, but Tom Jonas played against Tom Hawkins this year. There are just, when we face a team with either one really big tall forward or 2 very good tall to medium forwards like a Cameron and Hawkins. Don't get me wrong, not a lot of clubs are going to have the players to just stop Cameron and Hawkins. You're just not going to be able to do it, obviously. But the way we get bullied by these players, Tom Hawkins has bullied us for 5 years now. He's got Port Adelaide circled in the calendar every year. So we just don't have anyone to run with these guys. So anyone we could pick up in the draft that could potentially play in the next 8 to 12 months would be a massive improvement on what we currently have. That's why Radaglia would have been so important for us. And I think that's why Geelong refused to trade him, knowing that he would potentially be used against them to stop one of the things that they find so easy against us, which is kicking to the big men.
Yeah. And one of the things we've mentioned in these team reviews is how people kind of came into the draft talking about how poor the depth was. But then you've got, gun players who are, top 15 rated in Tom Scully at the start of the year, picking him up at pick 53. Must be pretty good to kind of have that draft caliber of player available for you with your second pick, right?
Well, that's really what we go for. If you look back at the drafts that Port have sort of participated in the last few years, every time we pick a player, it was, wow, this guy was rated in the top 10 at the start of the year, but then had this injury or just didn't have a good nationals or whatever it was, and they slipped to this for this reason or that reason. And we just throw it and just go, all right, well, we'll take a gamble. We did it with Georgiadis, who was the very end of the first round, who people were saying was looking like a top 12 pick for the entire year. And then I think he was coming off, was it an ACL? It was some form of a leg injury that kept him out for the entire season. And then he fell back. And we've just been willing to gamble on these players year after year. And until one of them doesn't pay off, like they tend to just keep paying off for us. And if they don't, it's like, we threw pick 53 at that guy. How many pick 53s go on to have 200 game careers? I would say not many. So it's worth a crack for us, and our draft team do incredibly well at recognizing that, hey, this guy might not be a 200 game player. We've only got pick 53, but what if you can offer something for 2 or 3 seasons in there? And that's sort of what we throw our weight to. So I think we're essentially, if you were doing a NBA draft on 2K and you see like potential A+ and all this stuff, but like did this during the season or, was affiliated with gangs or something, he's dropped down in the draft, you go, oh, I'll just take him because it's a game and he's going to live up to his potential in this video game, and then he's going to be a steal of a draft pick. It's like Port play like that. We don't really care what's going on. We go by how well their potential was ranked going into the year, and that's our pick. It's just tended to work out for us frequently. So,
is there a spot for Scully to play early?
Not to my knowledge, no. I would imagine we go in with, if all fit, we're looking at a forward line with Marshall, Dixon, Georgiadis, Orazio, and Rioli, and then a mixture of Butters, Rosie, and a few other players. So Tom Scully will find it incredibly difficult to break into that. Hopefully he has a good season in the Sandful, or presents when one of those guys as we've seen in the past, gets inevitably injured during the season. Dixon, Orazio, there might be spots opening up for him. Even Georgiades has missed games. So, yeah, no, it's just hopefully he shows all the potential in the seconds and is that next guy in line sort of thing.
I guess one of the other guys who would be in line for a call-up, I think, would be Kyle Marshall, who you picked up at pick 59, because, yeah, he's a key defender, but he's really athletic, and at 198 centimeters, he also has great physical attributes in terms of, I think he was like the top-rated player in the South Australian draft combine for jumping off both feet, and he ranked really highly for covering 20 meters. So a 198 centimeters with great, leaping and running ability, he could be one of those guys that can help you against Jeremy Cameron. Can you see him playing sometime soon?
Joe, I really hope so. We're not really one to thrust them in early. I think we like to blood our rookies, especially pick later in the draft. We throw the first rounders in, but outside of that, I think they tend to have a good little stint inside the sandful before they break in. But honestly, if Kyle Marshall is good enough to play AFL now, that is exactly what we need. So I would love for him to just blow us away in the preseason and fight his way into that squad. It would be incredible for us.
Awesome. And you're hoping more for Dill Williams as well, I assume, who you rookie listed. I think you're a fan of him. Can he break into that team again?
He's like the perfect sub or perfect next guy in line for as soon as someone's missing a game for whatever reason. You don't want Dylan Williams to play 22 games a season. You want to have better depth than that. But you do want him to play as soon as something does go wrong in the team. So absolutely, if he plays 8 to 10 games this year as other sub appearances or full games, then I'll be stoked because he's got a class to him, Dill Williams. One that we haven't seen at AFL level at all really yet. I think he's played the one game. So hopefully we see him play some games this year for whatever reason.
Awesome. And I guess that brings us to your Category B rookie there. Coming out of your Next Gen Academy, Nathan Barkla. He's a 186 centimeter half back. So he's got some size to him. And he, do you know much about him? Do you reckon he's a chance if you get some speed off halfback?
Well, I'll be lying if I said I knew anything about Nathan Barkla. But what I can tell you is that our halfback line is very, very contested for spots as well at the moment. So our halfback line and our midfield are pretty much the two. Like we are very heavy in those areas. So halfback, you got Burton, Bonner, Darcy Byrne-Jones, and I'm forgetting about 6 or 7 players there as well. Players who can really rebound well. And unfortunately, Barkler's probably going to have a tough time breaking into that as well. But again, if he can just provide a next in line atmosphere, then perfect. I look forward to seeing him in the Sandford Barkler, but I don't think he's going to be one to start. I'll be surprised if any of the rookies that we picked up this year break into the team in the first 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah, that's understandable. All right, then. I guess if we're going to be talking about the first 5 or 6 rounds, we can start talking about the season that is going to have the first 5 to 6 rounds. Are we going to see, hopefully for your sake, we don't see a repeat of this year where you have a really slow start. But we have you guys, that inconsistency. It's a bit of a killer for us. That's why we got you ladder position, being 11 to 13. I don't think you're going to.
Is that your prediction?
Well, that is our discussions. Is that you guys are so consistently inconsistent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's sorry.
I guess we kind of picture the top 6 being really, really tight to kind of get into, and then Port in the next kind of group of teams kind of fighting for that, top 8 spot. But then if they're not just in the top 8, then just outside the top 8. Obviously, North has your first round pick this year, so I'd like a worse position on the ladder. But
is there bias in this big day? Is there a bit of bias
with the predictions there?
Okay.
Do you
I mean, look.
expect a lot higher?
Yeah, personally, I do. I think if we threw a poll up somewhere, I think we would mostly be predicted to bounce back into the 8 this year. What's that stat about? There's always a team that goes that makes the top 8 that didn't the year before. I'm hoping that's as easy as predicting that we are just going to bounce back to what we did the 2 years prior, top 4 team back-to-back years, and make more noise this year. That's obviously going to be my prediction. I think we are a 3 to 6 team, somewhere in that range. I think you're just going to see a lot more competitiveness. Otherwise, I can see your number one prediction there. Does Ken Hinkley coach out the year? He won't if we're not looking to be in that ballpark. So I think it's one or the other. Either your ladder position prediction is incorrect, or your first prediction is going to be no.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of pressure on him to, not to stand down, but a lot of pressure on him to kind of keep his job last year with you guys missing finals. I know Koshi was saying,
one of them.
like, hey, yeah, Koshi was saying if he doesn't make finals, he's not in, and then hey, he's sticking around for another year. So, yeah.
I was very, very surprised by that extension. I think it came after a big loss as well, that extension. Look, there's something to be said about backing someone in, when their back's against the wall, back them in and, watch them fight their way out of it. I think Ken Hinkley finished the season with a lot of positive coaching moves. I was extremely frustrated with how he started the season. I think he coached a team that had Charlie Dixon, that had a fit Scott Lysette. He kept coaching that team, but those things weren't there. And he didn't adjust. He didn't look like he had another plan for what the team should be doing now that we don't have those important key cogs in our side. And as a fan, if I'm identifying that, that's frustrating because I'm identifying it from the couch. He's a paid employee to find these deficiencies and fix them. And it didn't look like he had the ability to do that. We were 0-5, in my opinion, large part because of that. As the season went on, Ken Hinkley did exclusively good things. He moved Rosie and Butters into the midfield, which should have happened months prior, maybe even years prior. And we looked a lot better. He made some cutthroat decisions, moving Travis Boak out of the midfield, doing a lot of things with our forward and our defense. Obviously, Jeremy Finlayson was a revelation. He did a lot of things late that I think saved his job. And if he starts the season with that mentality, it's going to be one or the other. 11 or 13 and no Ken Hinkley, or top 6 and Ken Hinkley's, I can't. Port backing in Ken Hinkley is a massive win, success, all that stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know I saw the Sack Hinkley signs hanging around in the Port building a few times there too.
That wasn't me. I've got an alibi. It wasn't me. I was on the bandwagon early, but he won me back around later in the season, so I'm backing him into the start this year.
Yeah, because you can back a coach, give them an extension, to give them that confidence, and then you can do a St Kilda and be like, "Nah, sorry, mate, we want Ross the boss again."
I suppose that was very interesting.
Yeah, backing your coach is a really weird one. But Koshi, I guess that comes from a position of you really trust the list, you trust the makeup. And its potential, and that this year was just an aberration. And I understand that like that stat of a team out of the finals can come back in. I don't know. A lot of people are predicting that Carlton could be the team that jumps in into the top 8 this coming season. But I guess moving on to Charlie Dixon now. He is so important to you guys, and your structure and being a focal point. And Marshall stood up this year, and Finlayson was a revelation. Do you still see that Finlayson is going to play more of that ruck role, or do you think that he's the one that's going to start also pinch hitting more up forward to help him out, or do you think that will fall more on Marshall to be that support for Dixon?
That's a very good question. I don't entirely know. We've got a fit Scott Lysette coming in, which we didn't obviously have late last year. I think in an ideal world, obviously Todd Marshall and Charlie Dixon are going to play in the same team. That's not in an ideal world. That's just exactly how it's going to happen. What we do with Finlayson and Scott Lycett after that is a little bit up in the air for me. Finlayson could play as that next guy. He could do what I thought we recruited him to do, which is play as a tall defender, which he has done way back in the past for GWS. I think what ends up happening is we'll see some sort of 60-40 split between Lycett and Finlayson, with a bit of bench time in between. But Lycett pinch hitting up forward has always been part of his a string in his bow as well. That's obviously how he made it at West Coast with Nat Nui. Is being able to go up forward and kick goals. So we need someone like that. So if Finlayson and Lycett are rotating, I think that's when our forward line is going to be the most potent, with the likes of Rioli, Horn Francis, Razzle and Razio put together, Razzle, around their feet, doing a lot of the crumbing work. So I think that's an ideal world for Port. It's whether they stay all fit, whether that all works. Could be just an entirely different circumstance. But most of all, I think we need Charlie Dixon to have another good year. He's been a bit up and down recently as well.
So with Rosie and Butters, I know you said that you wanted them to step up and lead that midfield even years ago. I assume that's going to continue again this year. And can they both be viable Supercoach picks for us this year?
Well. The reason I'm here has finally come to fruition. We got to talk about Rosie and Zach Butters in Supercoach. Boy, oh boy, how much time do we have? It's been about an hour. I've got about half an hour before I pass out from exhaustion after not eating yet. I'll give you a short answer. Okay, Rosie needs to be in about 100% of teams this year. If he's not, the exact percentage that he's not in will tell me exactly how many coaches don't take this game seriously. From what he produced in the midfield last season, after not training in the midfield, not having a preseason in the midfield, after what he produced after being thrust in there last season, which was a very good average, it would shock me to see him then have a full preseason in the midfield, be fit, young, ready to go, and regress from what he did on such short notice last year. There will be the opposite. There will be progression in his gameplay. He had a really high ceiling. You're going to see that again. There's the opportunity of people getting priced out by not starting him if he has a hot start. If Port have a hot start, I think you're in a lot of trouble if you don't have that man in your team. It might cost you more than what you are willing to pay, and he might just keep on burning you like we see. The reason we all start Josh Dunkley every year, and obviously he's not Josh Dunkley, he's not as good as Josh Dunkley, but he has that high-end ability to really punish you for not starting him. I think he's a super easy pick this year. Butters, on the other hand, I would love to start Zach Butters, and he's been in almost every second or third one of my drafts just because having him in my team makes me feel all warm inside. He will not start in my team, mostly due to the fact that there are a lot of other good options up forward. Taranto, Dunkley, Canelio, just to name a few. Rosie, to name four. And then you got Darcy Cameron, there's a lot of players. There's a lot of names up there. A lot of names. Butters, unfortunately, of all those names, is the guy who misses too many games. And I think he's been very unlucky with his injuries. I think he just throws himself at the contest a bit too much, and that's where they stem from. He's not exactly injury prone, but he's like accident prone, if that makes sense. But what is going to change that in his mentality? Probably nothing. That's just the way he plays. So as fun as that is to watch, as well as he's going to play when he's fit, until he plays a full season, it is almost impossible to have him in your starting team, I think. So, and he's more expensive than Rosie. He's more expensive than Taranto, than a lot of players, just because of how well he finished the year last year. So, look, Rosie's in, Butters is not in. And that's the short answer, believe it or not, lads. I had a lot more on that, but we'll keep it simple.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
We brought you on for your Port knowledge, not your Supercoach knowledge. So it's great answer that question. Do you feel like Do you feel like Butters will be the one who will rotate a little bit half forward and midfield, maybe with like a Horn Francis and Rosie kind of gets locked in as being that pure midfielder? Or do you think both of them may end up rotating? I guess from the outside looking in, it seems like their Port's midfield, with Boak and Wines and then a Ruckman and a few of the other players, you've got to throw in a couple of wingers there. It is fairly solid. So these guys have to find mid-time somehow.
Well, Butters will play more midfield than Boak this year. If Ken Hinkley wants to keep his job, that is the sort of mix that you'll see. Ollie, Rosie, Butters as the main three, and then a lot of players rotating through there. We've seen our forwards do it. We've seen our wingmen get CBAs. Travel obviously be a big part of it still. So if I had to choose someone to come out, Butters is going to be that guy. The thing is people try to use that as a knock on Butters, like he's not going to play as much midfield time, yada yada yada. He played almost no midfield time in 2021. He was just a high half forward. He was not a CBA midfielder. He was a CBA midfielder last year, which is why we picked him. I picked him in 2021 because he was a high half forward and he was very, very good at it. So him playing high half forward on his breaks from playing midfield, to me, is not a con at all. I think he can still score at really high volumes there, especially if he has the freedom to go from starting at half forward and getting the ball on the defensive flank, which he did a lot in the preseason 2021 and then did a lot during the year before his injury. He's very good at just finding that ball no matter where he is on the ground. So I don't think playing forward more is a knock against him. But he will be that guy to have more rotations in and out. Something else that I noticed last year is after his head knock that he received from Pau Pepper, a nice little bit of friendly fire there. I think that was in the showdown. He missed almost an entire quarter and then played forward for about the next 3 weeks in what looked like a bit of a protection sort of bid from Ken Hinkley. So I think he's also prone to being protected a little bit because we know he's his worst enemy, his own worst enemy. So for those reasons, he won't be in my side, but I'll still watch him ton up most of the games that he's fit for. We'll all see that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was going to mention he loves a good tackle as well. So even if he's not in the midfield, he'll get them in the forward line and kind of shut down the momentum if they try and run through.
And when he kicks goals, not only do Port play well, but he scores high scores. Those goals really put him from 90 to 105 to scoring those big 120s that we've seen from him. So, if he is playing more forward, then we'll see a little bit of that as well. And if Port are a bit better, maybe he gets more opportunities. Who knows? Having said all that, I still don't think he's worth starting just because you don't know when those missed games are going to come. If at the bye he's not missing many games, he's playing a bit more within himself, he's averaging 100 plus whatever. That's when it becomes more of an option.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, I guess that brings our discussion of the Port Adelaide Power to a close. But there you go. You've come back there, JB. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a great conversation. As Big J said, it's all for Port. It's not for Supercoach. And you clearly know everything there, as much as you possibly could. Thank you so much again for coming on. Where can all of our good viewers find you?
Firstly, thanks for having me, boys. I like forming this Triple J combination that we had here. I'll be sure to make an appearance years going forward as well. Where can they find us? You can pretty much, if you go to our Twitter at Dr_SC, you can see most of our stuff. I think all our podcasts are linked on there. Our Patreon's linked on there, et cetera, et cetera. So go have a look there. I'll make sure to share you boys up on the Twitter as well. Get your guys' name out there as well. Do a bit of cross promotion, which is what we love in the Supercoach community. So it's just been good to jump on, guys, meet you, see some new fresh faces. You guys have been doing this for just over a season now.
Yeah, I think did a little bit last year, but smashing it up this year, definitely in the preseason.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, well, good luck for a big year, boys. I'll struggle to find time during the season to reappear, but next preseason, definitely. But I'll be keeping an eye on you guys, making sure that you're keeping up with the content.
Definitely. Do you have anything big coming up over the next week or so that people can watch out for?
We will be podcasting next week for the launch of Super Coach. So that's coming up. That's probably in the next week or so. That'll be our next big podcast coming out. But I say to everyone, our Patreon is where to go. I know not a lot of people like paying for Supercoach content, but it's a lot more than that. The community that we have in there is more weighted towards an actual community of people rather than you come here for Supercoach advice sort of thing. So I think most people start by, I want to get a bit better at Supercoach, let's go there. And then they stay for the community, the catch-ups, we do a lot of podcasts on the Patreon that is more so like game show type vibe. It's all a bit different in there. So it's good fun. So I recommend if people do have it, I think our bottom tier is like $5 or something like that a month. So if people do have a bit of disposable income, it's definitely worth trying out, and you'll probably be stuck there forever because it's just a lot of fun.
Nice. Well, thanks a lot, JB, for coming on. Guys, if you like the content, remember, like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And we'll have some more Supercoach stuff coming out soon.